This is Up for Debate presents The Ballad of Rocky Balboa. Tonight, episode number 182, recorded June 11th, 2020. Chapter 5, Rocky V. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Up for Debate presents, right in the middle of our Rocky Balboa movie watch. I'm Sean Jennings, joined as always, Matty loves ya. It's Matt Mariani. Hello, Matt.
Where did that one come from?
That's the line from the movie. Get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you.
Ah, okay, yeah, you're right. I have many thoughts on that scene in the movie.
We got many thoughts on this movie.
Oh, yes.
Period.
Yeah.
Tonight we are talking 1990s Rocky V. One of the least beloved Rocky movies, I think it would be fair to say. Certainly one of the most forgettable, but we'll dive into it. If folks haven't seen or listened to any of our past Rocky movies, I recommend. We had an awesome episode last week on Rocky IV. We're going to try and beat out this week, but make sure you go back and listen to them. Matt, Rocky V.
Rocky the Fifth.
Wow.
Now, Big Five.
It's funny to me, after watching this movie, the trailer writes itself. Because I'm just imagining in my head the big words coming across the screen. Douche, Apollo Creed. Douche, Clubber Lang. Douche, Ivan Drago. Douche, now Rocky faces his toughest challenge. Douche, irreversible brain damage. Douche, and accounting fraud. Dun 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 dun. I mean, what is this movie, Matt?
Sean, that was actually perfect. I was going to mention this in our next episode because it's kind of the culmination of bad villain names. But like, I guess I'll mention it now. Is that the villains of Rocky movies have a lot in common, especially at least in their, as far as their naming goes, with villains we would see in like Bond movies. And I never realized that until after I actually just watched Rocky Balboa today. The next movie, which we'll get to in our next episode, and the villain in that one, or I guess the antagonist there, his name is Mason Dixon. Sean.
Oh, love that. Love that.
So, as a matter of fact, this is probably one of the more tame, I guess, the people he fights later on in the movie. But yeah, and no, his immediate villain right now, his immediate opponent is Paulie. What did you think about that? What a twist there.
But it's not a twist. I think I wrote
it's
in my
not really
notes, Paulie is in charge of Rocky's money? Question mark? What?
I wrote the same thing. I said, ask Sean, how realistic is this? Sean, how realistic is this?
You're talking about the man who once, I think, threw a flask at a Rocky pinball machine?
The man who had the robot.
Yeah, who was in love with a robot.
In love with a robot.
And he's in charge. Oh, he gave him power of attorney. I just signed it. And it was like one of those.
You signed the papers.
I mean, we'll get into this throughout the whole movie, but this movie is lazy with cliches, and the rich guy loses all his money in a way that isn't detailed explained because no one needs to know for plot reasons.
I actually had to look up because between his incoherent mumbling and the Paulie just being terrible, I didn't really understand fully what was happening. I knew that, like, at first I thought that Paulie had some kind of possession of Rocky's bank account, like he gave him his PIN number, and that he had pissed it all away on like gambling or something. But I looked it up, and what happened was it was Paulie signed away all of the money, all of Rocky's estate, all of it, to that's 100%, Sean. 100% of Rocky's estate he signed away to an accountant who then made bad investments. And that's the only detail that's given. He made bad investments, lost all of Rocky's money in making these bad investments, and then fled the country.
Yeah, well, and yeah, he signed power of attorney over to the accountant, so he essentially had control over everything Rocky had, which he claimed while they were in Russia for 3 months. He had to give to him. But my favorite part of that's actually not the craziest thing, because you do read about like a Wesley Snipes type celebrity, and some of these celebrities who like their accountants do steal all their money. So it's like that to me isn't necessarily. Like, I give the movie credit for not being, like you said, like somehow Paulie spends $40 million in 2 weeks or something. But what's crazy to me is when his lawyers when Rocky's like, I'll just do a couple of commercials again. We'll get all this money back. And his lawyer is like, no one will hire you, Rocky. You were scammed. And I'm like, what is that? Why would he's still the heavyweight champion of the world? He just beat Ivan Drago in the biggest boxing event in human history. And you're telling me he can't do a commercial because his reputation is stained because some scammer stole his money?
He's not known for his business acumen.
What?
They're not going to be like, you were a businessman and somebody took you for all you were worth.
Oh my God, that was so stupid.
But the accountant didn't like embezzle the money. Well, I guess he did, but it's not like he took the money and spent it on houses and Lamborghinis. He took all of his money and made bad investments.
Bad real estate deals.
Yes, and real estate deals. Could he have been that shitty of an accountant that he pissed away 100% of a client's money on bad investments?
And that's another one of these like cliche movie things where it's like, we've lost all of our money, so now we have to go live in like back when we had no money. And it's like, that's not how, like, they had an estate sale. Like, you still did have some money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did the accountant like, did they find this accountant like in a Philadelphia ghetto? and this guy was like, trust me, I'm an accountant. Give me all your details.
It's just Paulie and a mustache.
Yeah. It's Paulie's brother. What a really right away a terrible plot, terrible conflict is set up because it's not necessary. The only thing, forget the money and the financial situation. They could have left that alone. The real issue is the brain damage part. The second thing that you mentioned in the introduction, the second conflict that Rocky is facing here, they could have just played on that. And they could have said that Rocky's not well enough to do commercials or not well enough to do any kind of to make a reappearance in the public limelight. And that way he can live with his riches and his mansion and the wealth that he built up, but still not be the person he once was or something. And then the movie can be all about him recovering from that brain damage and then going out and boxing again to hopefully try to not get more brain damage. But it could have been that kind of a story, Sean.
To be Matt, this movie is trying so unbelievably desperately to be a throwback to Rocky 1. I mean, in so many ways, including, by the way, bringing back director John G. Avildsen, who directed the first one and won the Academy Award for Best Director. Whether it's Mixed Gym and the pet store, whether it's the streetness of it and the bar and all. I mean, this really is supposed to be a throwback movie, and they don't care how Rocky gets there, but he's got to be living back in his old neighborhood. They're just trying to hit the reset button. And on one hand, I appreciate the idea. On the other hand, I despise the execution, which to me radically did not work.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually wrote this movie is the Force Awakens of Rocky. What I meant was that it's how it was directly like Force Awakens extremely closely paralleled Hope. Yeah. The same situation here is that they borrowed so many ideas and so many elements from the first Rocky movie, and they used such a convoluted premise to get there with the financial situation. Just I don't know. They could have gone in a completely different direction, but
and again, this is a movie for me that's really good in theory on paper, right? Rocky, top of his game, biggest guy in the world, gets knocked down to where he started. Finds a young man, he's the next Rocky, he trains him up, he starts winning fights, but then he turns on him because of an evil promoter, and then eventually he has to fight his protege. I love that idea. I think that's all you need, yeah. And what they did, and I wrote here in my notes, I said, the biggest sin of this movie is that it's just really boring. Like, it's so slow, and it's... This, again, in a throwback to Rocky 1, the biggest problem I have is that the star of this movie is Rocky. Rocky, and I will maintain this, it's been true of the last 5 movies, Rocky is the least interesting character in the Rocky universe. It's about things that happen to him, not about him. That's what I didn't like about the first movie. It's what I hated about this movie. It's a movie all about Rocky and how he's somehow even stupider and slower.
I mean, the movie's called Rocky, Sean. It's called Rocky Five.
But
His name is before all the Roman numerals.
But it's a boxing movie, and it's about the fight. They don't even have a big... He doesn't even box in the movie. He never gets in a ring. I mean, it's really frustrating. And I wrote... This was the other thing that bugged me, and again, true of the other Rocky movies. This is full of interesting characters trapped in a boring movie. I would have loved to have seen a spinoff about Tommy Gunn. I think that's an interesting character. Abused kid, out of the Midwest, scrapper fighter. Interesting. The promoter, Duke. Again, really interesting character. Would love to know more about him. Even Robert/Rocky Jr. And him being a rich kid having to go to an inner city school. An interesting story. And all these characters who are really cool and interesting are surrounded by the most boring character in cinema, Rocky Balboa. And it just drove me nuts. If you can't tell, it legitimately drove me crazy.
So you would rather just watch like vignettes of all of the people around Rocky while Rocky sits in his house and just kind of marinates with this devastating brain injury.
Honestly, I think a better movie would have
been...
You know
what? That actually sounds like an amazing movie.
Yeah, Rocky falls into a coma from his last fight, and he's in a coma the whole movie. I would have really enjoyed that.
It's about everybody else. Oh, and then there could be you could even have that and introduce what I thought was the best part of the film, the best scene in the film. Because it would totally work. It would just be a coma fantasy instead of just a real life hallucination spurred on by his mangled brain, which was when he was in the Mickey's gym and he hallucinates Mickey being there. And Mickey gives him the cufflinks.
I have so much thought about that.
The cufflinks would show up again at the end of the movie, so you're not sure if it was it real or was it just a dream?
Well, I will say,
very clearly that moment.
According to Wikipedia, and I don't have a good enough memory for this, but the Golden Glove necklace is first seen in Rocky II, where it's worn by Apollo Creed, and then again throughout Rocky III and IV. So it was in the other movies.
Did you say the necklace?
The necklace, yeah, the golden gloves.
Oh yeah, no, it's the cufflinks, the Rocky Marciano cufflinks that he hands him.
Am I mixing?
And then in the end of the movie, he gives them to his son, and he says these are
the little gloves on the chain.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. They were in the other movies.
But you said they were Apollo wore them in the other movies. How did Apollo get them?
I'm just reading your Wikipedia. I don't have a good enough memory for this, but it says the Golden Glove necklace featured so prominently in the film was first seen in Rocky II, where it was worn by Apollo Creed, and then again throughout Rocky III and IV.
I think we're thinking of a different thing. He gives him he gives him the necklace with the gloves, but there's also these cufflinks that Mickey hands him. I swear this. Okay. I didn't. But
well, we're gonna get bogged down. We should keep moving on.
Okay,
yes.
So I just googled Mickey cufflinks, and what do you think came up?
Mickey Mouse cufflinks. That's
exactly right, Mickey. I should have known better. Hashtag should have known better. Well, anyway, this movie's got a lot of problems. I think we can probably agree on that. Most problematic, I think that they didn't. It was like they didn't really know what to do with any of their characters anymore. They were just kind of like, well, he does this because he's Paulie. Of course, he's an idiot.
Well,
like.
But and again, it's one of my favorite, funniest things about this movie is, of course, Paulie somehow gets more of a drunk every movie, as if that's possible. And at one point at Mick's gym, he is drinking out of a pair of binoculars that disguise a flask, which to me is hilarious because why would he even have binoculars? Like it's not like a secret hidden thing at all.
It's because he's creeping on everybody. I don't know.
But they're not real binoculars. That like you could hide a flask in a bunch of different ways, but like for him just to have binoculars around his neck, like that's
saying that would make it. That's like the most suspicious thing. He might as well just have a flask.
Yes, it was just so funny to me. I'm like, I love Paulie because he just makes no sense as a human being.
Yeah. I think there must be a fan theory out there that Paulie is actually an alien visiting Earth and like dressed up in human skin. I would believe it. I would 100% believe it.
That's a spinoff I'd watch.
He's learned everything from like observing other humans around him for a limited amount of time, and he has to like act like he's one of them. That'd be pretty cool.
Um,
I said that this movie was midlife crisis Rocky. What do you think about that? Is this midlife crisis Rocky?
I don't know though, because even in Rocky 4, he didn't want to fight. He was retired.
Yeah, but
And
he
even in
seemed more
Rocky 3, he was
comfortable.
kind of retired.
He was comfortably retired in Rocky 4. He was doing bits and he was doing work. He had work and stuff. He had a new kid.
Yeah,
But he only came out of retirement because Ivan murdered his friend.
right. That's good motivation.
Yes, that I would argue that that's much better motivation than some kind of lame scam and poorly conceived and poorly framed plot device that people just brush off like, oh well, I guess he's got to. Oh well, here we go again. He's got to move back to Philly and
Again,
work his way up from the bottom again.
I do
Because that's
think
how life works.
I do think there's value in a movie where we examine the physical toll boxing takes on a boxer. Like, that's interesting to me. This movie just does it so dumbly. Like, it's just him talking with a bit more of a slur, and he gets a headache once in a while, and he's funnier. Like, it doesn't do a really good job. It's not serious.
Sean, would you have rather seen the movie where instead of going back to box after Rocky loses all of his money in the dumb financial plot device, if instead he took a temp job with an office and just answered phones all day in like as Rocky?
No, but like
Hello? What are you doing?
I do
What
like
do you want?
I do like the idea of him as the trainer manager and taking Mickey's place. Like, that's an interesting character development. Okay, you can't box anymore, but you can be around boxing. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's actually a good move. And some of my favorite parts of this movie were when he's training Tommy and when he's getting into boxing. And I would watch a whole series of movies where he's the trainer, which I have a suspicion is what happens in some of the future films. But that to me that's his midlife crisis that I want to watch. Not just, it's this awkward thing where it's like in Rocky 4 it made sense. I'm retired, but now I have to fight. And in this movie it's like I'm retired and I want to fight, but I kind of don't. And I'm gonna, but then I'm not. It was just kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah, again, I think this movie absolutely could have benefited from being half as long as it was. I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We said that about the first Rocky movie, and I think it really is kind of true for almost all of them. I say almost because I think I tolerated the length of Rocky 3. Seemed like it was fine. Rocky 2, I don't know, but the first Rocky, much like this one, absolutely could have just been half of the movie and would have been fine.
The incredible thing is that this Rocky 5 is actually 15 minutes shorter than Rocky 1 and Rocky 2.
Somehow.
And 15 minutes longer than Rocky 4. No, I mean, and Matt, I don't think it would surprise anyone who's watched this movie to know that the even in the production of this movie, it was a script problem. And the script was being rewritten as the movie was being shot. The Mickey flashbacks were originally shot as him being a ghost and it happening in the present. And only in editing did they make it as a flashback.
Wow.
And of course, famously in the original script, Rocky is killed during the final fight, dying in Adrian's arms in the street. Even throughout most of the filming and production, that was planned to be the outcome. It wasn't until near the end that Stallone decided against it and switched the ending.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I read that Stallone toyed with the idea of killing Rocky off. He was going to die in an ambulance on the way from the fight to the hospital, with Adrian next to him. His last words were going to be, "We did it, Adrian. We did it." Now, I don't know about that. Like, like we did what? We fought until our brain literally exploded inside of our skull. Is that the message you want to send home to the kids? I'm kind of glad he didn't send Rocky into the sunset that way. Mostly because then we got Rocky Balboa, which I would argue is a pretty competent film.
I mean, I have a lot of problems with the fight at the end of the movie, which we can get into in a minute. But I do think killing off Rocky is not a bad idea. I just think you have to be really I just think you have to be really smart about it. And him dying in that street fight, I don't think would have been a satisfying ending.
No. That would be a downer ending. And Rocky, if anything, Rocky is not about downer endings.
Well, and that's
None of them really none of them really have that, because there's no, I would say there's no Empire Strikes Back of the Rocky series, which is a reference you now get because you've now seen the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, that's right.
Then second reference to Star Wars movies tonight. But it's I guess the closest you could think of is Ivan dying, Ivan killing Apollo.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a sad moment, but in the end he gets his revenge. He beats Ivan in Soviet Russia. I can change, you can change, we can all change. But it's not about that. It's not about the sad endings. It's about lifting your spirits. This one had a very weird ending. Didn't like the ending of this one. Probably one of the weaker endings.
Be specific
of any movie. I'm talking like he fights Tommy Gunn, or it happens at the end. I did like when the part I did like at the end was when he punched he gut punched the promoter.
Yeah.
And said something about sue me for what?
Yep.
Like,
you touch me, I'm gonna sue you.
Yeah. And then I guess he reconciles the lame problems he has with his son, which is another side plot I wish got explored a little bit more.
I don't want to get us away. I'll talk about the son in a second. I don't want us to get away from the final fight.
Yeah. So just the end. I guess the ending. I wasn't wholly. The fight I thought was good. The fight itself, well choreographed, well done in that regard. I like how they do seem like they innovate on every fight. It gets better. But again, I think that your assessment when you said about when we were talking about Rocky IV, Sean, about how he should have been able to beat Drago not just by sheer will, but he should have been able to beat Drago by being the smarter, the more competent fighter, rather than Drago's just kind of like a weightlifting meat sack. In this case, I think he should have been able to beat Gunn by virtue of being the one who taught Gunn everything. But it should have been like, well, I didn't teach you this, and he pulls out like a new move that Rocky had never seen before. That'd be like something you'd get from Dragon Ball or something.
Yeah.
Like every Dragon Ball is like, I have this special move that I didn't tell you, just in case this event ever happened. It would just show another dimension to Rocky of like, well, maybe he's not this big dumb guy. Maybe he's actually a tactical fighter.
I will say the one thing I have a lot of issues with how that fight was set up and executed, but I will give the movie one thing, which is it does a good job of setting up and concluding this idea, and Adrian really stresses this of, it's not about what's in your head, it's about heart. It's about what's in your heart. Tommy Gunn doesn't have that. And I think the movie does a good job of setting him up after he beats Union Kane, the champ, and he becomes the heavyweight champ. And he shows himself to really be, I don't want to say a bad guy, but just to be a guy who's just in it for victories, and he doesn't have the heart. And when Rocky and he gets so sort of mad and aggressive with Rocky, that Rocky does, I feel, beat him with heart. I do feel, so I don't know if you need necessarily a special trick or something like, I think the movie does a decent job of saying the reason Rocky wins is because Tommy doesn't have the heart of a fighter like Rocky does. You can have all the training in the world, but if you don't have the heart, you can't beat the champ. And I did like that. I think the movie set that up well.
Yeah, it is about heart in this one, but that's just, I feel like that's the motivating factor for every Rocky movie.
Oh no, it's
everyone.
For
it's like
sports movie ever. I
mean, he wins thing. Because he's got the heart. He wins because he's got the drive. I mean, that's why I liked Rocky 3 so much, was because there was some nuance to it. He won just because he could take punches over and over again until Clubber Lang got tired. That's a tactical way of defeating your opponent instead of just believing that you can. Harder than they did or something.
In this movie, he took a lot of punches. He
sure did.
For someone with brain damage, he sure took a lot of punches.
Yeah, that had me kind of nervous the whole time. I mean, it would really be like a borderline miracle if something like that happened today. If a man with a history of brain injury Well, first of all, I don't think they would even allow him in the ring. I think he would just like everybody that cared about him and loved him in his entire life would say, please don't do this. And then I think the boxing commission would just intervene and say, with your medical history, you'll die in the ring. You can't do this.
And the movie touches on that, and that's why they say a lot. We got to go Tokyo. We got to go somewhere where, you can't fight in the U.S., but we can get this set up overseas. And actually, by the way, a lot of real-life boxers had done that. It's not enough.
Rumble in the Jungle. What is it? Thrilla in Manila.
That's right, or the famous Buster Douglas fight in Tokyo.
And that too, yes.
No, I wrote here in my notes, setup to the Rocky gunfight is ludicrous. Because the movie, if you think about the sequence, Tommy Gunn defeats Union Kane, becomes the champ, supposedly. Gets into a press conference. Now, I have a problem with this movie's press conferences, and this is one of those stupid details only I would notice. But they have the most aggressive reporters I've ever seen in a movie. Because all of the reporters are like yelling at Tommy Gunn and Duke the promoter, shouting at them, but you're not the champ. You're just a champ on pay. Like, are these people reporters or are they just angry fans? It was so aggressive.
I made a note of that. I didn't know. I thought they were protesters. I thought they were like avid protesters that came to the fight to specifically protest Gunn's victory on the grounds that he is not as good as Rocky. It reminded me of something from pro wrestling.
Right.
It'd be like something that the WWE would do.
It seems staged for a movie.
Right. It seemed like, or something that was set up that another promoter had set up to make a fight with Rocky that much more dramatic.
Yeah,
which
like
you would
when
see in the
Clubber
wrestling
Lang shows
world.
up in the audience and starts that, and I think I wrote that earlier in the first press conference when Rocky gets off the plane from Russia, and Duke just like walks up on stage, and I'm like, do they just let anyone into these press conferences? he's just some dude, and he just walks up there and like commandeers the mics. But basically the press is yelling at him, oh, Duke, it's just a paper title and you set it up. And which, by the way, a movie I would have rather seen was Duke puppeteering the entire boxing industry and setting up these fake fighters. Much more interesting. But so then he has to get Tommy Gunn to go bonkers pissed and convince him that he has to fight Rocky. Then they have to go to the bar with a TV camera crew, which is kind of weird. And then they broadcast it live on the news as they go into the bar. Rocky doesn't want to fight him. He then has to punch Paulie and say, all right, let's go. I fight out on the street. And they go out there and then they broadcast it live. So Adrian and his son can see it and go to the fight. Very convoluted. And then they have this street fight. And I wrote in my notes, street fight at night equals hard to see. I felt like I couldn't see most of what was going on because it was so dark. Very different from a brightly lit boxing ring. I struggled to see it as a good and entertaining fight because there was just so much going on. I think 3 different times Rocky like knocks over Tommy Gunn, turns his back to him and like goes to do something, and then Tommy Gunn jumps him from behind, but he does it like 3 different times. I wasn't thrilled with that final fight. I would have rather seen them, even if it wasn't like a big formal fight, even in the ring at Mick's gym or just something a little more structured.
That's right. I think it should have been at the ring at Mickey's gym. I think that would be more poetic. A fight in the street in the dark. I saw it as kind of a metaphor for Rocky's uncertainty about his future.
Sure, he's a street fighter, and that's
the
his
darkness
origin.
With his mental illness, his brain damage, like darkness setting in, like the twilight of his career, all of those things. I that's why I thought the darkness kind of helped with that. Not that I think that Stallone thought about any of them. Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he thought it would be more thematic that way. But the fight in Rocky's gym, I guess that's as good a place as any, since this was intended to be the last Rocky movie. To send him out where he began. I mean, that seemed to be the point of it from the beginning, right? Like they send him back to the Philadelphia ghetto. They come up with a convoluted plot contrivance to get him back to his old roots, and then having the final fight be in Mickey's gym just kind of would think it would be more poetic there, but. who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I on one hand, I think it was bad execution. I don't think it's a bad idea. I would have rather them just fight with no crowd. I would have loved to see them one-on-one just fighting in an alleyway.
Oh, me too. Yeah, have the without a crowd would have made also more poetic sense, like just man on man, one on one.
And I think
Uh, yeah.
Tommy in that final fight, he's not. If he was a little more, I know everything you know. I'm the new you. I'm not your puppet. I'm better than you. You know, if he had been a little bit more of an aggressive, interesting character at that moment, I think the fight would have been better. But instead, he's just, I'm mad at you, and just like
Yeah.
punches him. And to me, there's not a good enough conflict where I'm like, yeah, Rocky, you kick his ass. Like, I just didn't really care who won.
Yeah, he really does just come off as annoying at the end, toward the end when he's getting brainwashed by the promoter.
Yes. Which,
And there's
again,
yeah,
a good arc on paper. That's what bugs me. I love the idea of Rocky's protege being twisted by a shady promoter. Love that. That's a great idea, and I just don't care when I watch this movie. It's such a bummer.
yeah, it was poorly executed. I think it just suffers from just too many cooks. It's just we have this plot going on here with the rivalry with Rocky and Tommy Gunn. We have Rocky's son not fitting in at school or falling in with the wrong crowd and dealing with life in the inner city life, and we have Paulie doing his drunken Paulie thing. It's just too much. I think they should have picked just one or two focuses and really honed in on that. But I think they get a little confused and a little lost in what the message is in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess that makes sense because in a 2010 interview, I found out that Stallone claimed that he only made this movie, quote, out of greed.
Yeah, he regrets it.
He said he just made the movie to get rich, to get more money. So,
well, this movie actually had the biggest budget, reported budget of all of the Rocky movies, of the original 5 at least. $42 million spent on this, about twice what was spent on Rocky 4 before it. I mean, they expected. You got to remember, Rocky 4 was a massive success, huge, biggest. It's still the biggest grosser of the entire Rocky franchise. So there was no reason to think. I mean, there was big expectations for this movie.
yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit later about its release and the money it made and all of that, which is an interesting story in and of itself. But I do want to talk a little bit about Mickey and the Mickey flashback.
Yes. Okay.
I wrote here in my notes, this Mickey flashback is very out of character for him. I thought this was weird. It didn't feel like Mickey. He felt a little too nice, a little too sentimental, a little too friendly. I get why it's in the movie and he has to have that sort of heart-to-heart flashback moment, but I was watching it the whole time and I'm like, there just something about it didn't feel right. Was that just me?
Well, I guess when I was watching the movie at first, I didn't think it was a flashback. I thought this was Rocky's brain falling apart and showing like a projection of a memory that he didn't have but wanted to have. Like his brain got kind of like confused with he remembered Mickey and he remembered like the sentimentality he had toward Mickey, and this was kind of a projection of that. I mean, Mickey was kind of like a father figure to him. I think under the surface. I don't think we got to really see that side of him, which is kind of a shame. I do wish that we did. But the few scenes we see that show any kind of connection is just him trying to hone Rocky into the hardest fighter he can be. We don't really get to see a whole lot. I think it's more of a hero. It's like Mickey is kind of a hero in Rocky's mind, like a legend. He's
sure.
like Obi-Wan. He's Obi-Wan Kenobi to Rocky's Luke Skywalker, Star Wars reference number 3. Whereas instead he becomes almost like he goes from that to more of I can't think of a good analogy of like a good father, but he becomes more of a Mufasa to Rocky's Simba. That's kind of the way that I see it turning, is like Mickey is kind of, he's always seen him as this like hardened trainer, like getting him into shape and helping him fight. And this is Rocky seeing him as more of a paternal like supporter, which I liked. I like this side of Mickey. But I also choose to believe that it only happened in Rocky's mind.
It would make a lot more sense if that was true. And I agree with you. And everything I've read about the movie would lead me to believe it was edited in a way that it's supposed to be a flashback. What's interesting to me is the timing of it, because Mickey's quote here, come here, Rock. My God, you ready, ain't you? That Apollo won't know what hit him. You're going to roll over him like a bulldozer. Which would indicate to me this was before in the
An
training.
Italian bulldozer.
An Italian bulldozer. Which would indicate to me it's from the first movie before he fights Apollo the first time. In that first movie, we don't... At that point, Mick didn't believe in him for most of the movie, and even after it just... I agree, if this was like a Rocky 3 flashback, it makes more sense because they've spent years together building up Rocky's career, but it just seemed, get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you. I don't know. It just I would have rather seen Mickey take a harder approach, and then we have to imply that he loves him rather than being so weirdly sentimental in a flashback. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I watched it and I was like you. I was like, this doesn't seem like something that would really happen. So maybe that's just bad editing on the movie's part. Like I said, originally it was supposed to be Mick as a ghost, and that was supposed to be like coming back and talking to Rocky in real life, and they just ended up editing it to be like a flashback.
Oh, I would have 100% more liked that better. And
yes.
That way, but he still gives him the cufflinks.
Yes.
And then you have to wonder, like, whoa, was that real? Like,
well, because it's finally in the afterlife, quote unquote, or Rocky's at least hearing what he always wanted to hear out of Mickey was that he really did love him. To me, that's super powerful. It makes way more sense. But like I said, this movie, to me, when you don't have a set script and you're editing your story together after you've shot it, you're never going to have a great movie at that point. And that's really what hurt this overall.
I still think Burgess Meredith nailed it.
Oh,
I still think he did a great job.
I'd listen to Burgess Meredith read The Phone Book. Believe me, he did great. Like everyone in this movie, he only had what the script told him to, unfortunately.
Yeah, really, everybody else.
I would argue this movie, I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, I think this is probably Talia Shire's best acting as Adrian in a Rocky movie.
Because she gets the most to do.
Right. And I admit that's a huge part of it, but she at least has an emotional arc and involvement in the plot, unlike other movies where she's sort of a side character. I at least appreciated that.
I mean, in the other movies, so let's see, she's been in a coma. She played an extremely shy.
I forgot about that.
She was extremely shy and bookish in another movie.
Yep.
So really this is the most she gets to do. And then the other, she's in another country in the other movie.
Yes, that's right. Well, watching her and promoter Duke go back and forth, I thought was actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
I really did buy that.
I think that, this has to be her best performance, because she's either bookish and shy, in a coma, or on the other side of the world, right? Or what's going on with her in Rocky 3? Was that wasn't her? That wasn't the coma. That was 2. Was the coma?
Are you sure it wasn't 3?
No, I thought that was 2.
Oh, maybe it was. I can't,
3, I guess she's living life.
I mean, like 50% of her dialogue in the first 4 movies is Rocky.
Yeah, because in Rocky 3, that's Clubber Lang is like, oh, I want a piece of that.
It's right. He hits on her.
I'll show you what a real man can do. God, I really wish Mr. T was in more movies.
Bring him back. Ugh. One other part of the movie I don't think we've really discussed is Robert, Rocky Jr., and his little side plot. Former rich boy gets taken down to the inner city and is enrolled in an inner city school and has his own nice little character arc where he's a goody goody boy and he learns that he has to fight. He gets jealous of his father's relationship with Tommy Gunn, wishes that was the relationship he had with his father. He eventually beats up the bullies, and at the end of the movie, connects with his dad. I will say, Matt, again, I really was interested in that story. Did it work? I don't know. Would I like to see more? Probably. But I do think the idea of having a son who you don't focus on because you're so obsessed with boxing and boxers that you don't realize your own son is there, the son trying to train in boxing to get his father's approval, beats up the bully, still doesn't get his father's approval, and realizes he doesn't need it, or boxing, he should just be himself. I liked it a lot, actually. I liked that plot quite a bit.
Yeah, I did as well. I kind of wanted to see more of that. Wanted to see it develop a little more. Instead, we just get one scene where he gets his jacket stolen, and Rocky is mad.
Yeah, he's part of the
montage. He teaches him how to fight, though, right? He teaches him how to box or a little bit.
No, so that's what I think is really interesting is the montage. So this movie does have that traditional Rocky montage, and we'll talk about the soundtrack in a second because that's a whole nother discussion. Is the montage is Rocky training Tommy Gunn while Robert is in kind of on the sidelines, sort of self-training or working with other trainers at the gym.
Oh, that's yes,
and stares on longingly. And then, of course, after he beats up the bully, he runs into Mick's gym and says, Dad, you'll never guess what I did. He goes, hey, that's great. Why don't you go home and tell your mother? She loves that kind of stuff. And he just goes back to fighting and training Tommy.
Yes, and that's what
kind of hitting the peak of that arc of, my father loves me, but I don't need to reach for his approval, at least via fighting.
Yeah, would you have preferred? I know I would have preferred Rocky. Like I was waiting for the moment where he's like, Dad, you never pay attention to me anymore. This and that. Like I got beat up at school, or like he goes, hey, how'd you get that bruise on your face? Like I got beat up at school and nobody cares about me. You don't care about me, and the kids at school are mean to me. And then I was waiting for that moment where he says, you know what? I'm gonna leave the boxing world behind, and I'm gonna teach you how to fight. And then he teaches. Then the montage should have been him teaching his son how to box. His son goes to school, kicks the bully's ass, and that's the fight. That's the dramatic fight at the end. Screw the whole Tommy Gunn thing. But the whole fight is his son beating up the bully at school, and then he goes, "Oh, we'll go get some ice cream" or something like that. And that's the Rocky V that I wanted to see.
Yeah, you're 1,000,000% right, but that's where we keep saying of all these characters could do some kind of spin-off movie, and on paper, if it has nothing to do with Rocky Balboa, but it is just the story of a son of a famous boxer who grew up in wealth and in posh and has never fought in his life, gets sent to a dangerous place like an inner city school, and has to learn how to fight, that's a great movie.
Much more interesting movie, yes.
I would watch that all day long.
You know what? I think you have some merit here to your Rocky is the least interesting character in Rocky.
Well, but you know the thing about Rocky 2 is that I feel like if you edited these first 5 movies and just did the Rocky parts, I think you could make a competent movie, but because it's spread so thin in each movie, that there's nothing to grab onto. There's like, if I said name 5 words that describe Rocky Balboa, you couldn't, because he has no personality in these movies other than dumb boxing guy.
That pretty much hits nail on the head.
So it's almost frustrating, and that's why I said the biggest sin of this movie is not that it's a bad movie, because it's not. It's got some good parts. It's competently made. It's just boring. It's just like a bunch of stuff happens, and I think I give Robert Balboa, Rocky Jr., was played by Sylvester Stallone's son, Sage Stallone, who has gone on to do acting and directing and things like that. And I actually think he was pretty good in this. Oh, and he died.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. He died. I didn't know that. And I actually thought he was really good in this movie.
Oh, yeah. No, he was great. He was. Oh, something else I wrote, Sean. I couldn't tell. It's a minor nitpick, but I couldn't tell if the everything that Rocky was facing in the movie, it was kind of a melange of brain damage and PTSD. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell if it was both, if it because his hands were shaking, almost like in like a Parkinson's kind of way, which can also be symptomatic of brain trauma. But he also was having these vivid hallucinations of Drago, which led me to believe like that's PTSD. Like
Right.
he was being affected by a traumatic incident. So I couldn't tell if it was the brain chemistry that was going wrong. I wish they could have like clarified it, but they really didn't. They were just like, oh, he's punch drunk. He got hit too many times in the head. It would have been a real good way to explore mental health issues, but this was 1990, so this was long before those kinds of strides were made, I guess, in recent years. They could have, like, I wanted a detailed explanation of this happened to him. We need to rehab him in this way. Cut out the whole thing with Tommy Gunn. He
Right.
doesn't even need to be in the movie. It's just Rocky rehabbing his mental health while training his kid to be the best damn boxer that he could be to beat up the bullies.
Yeah,
And then you could even keep the stupid financial contrivance just as a reason back to the guest. He has to fight the scary kid.
And his son has to come to terms with having a father who has brain damage. And how do you come to terms with him not being the man you used to know? It's one of the 5 good movies trapped in this mediocre movie, unfortunately.
That's right. It's fitting that it's called Rocky 5 because it's like choose these 5 plot lines that we should have gone with instead of the one that we did.
Right. And again, it all comes down to script problems and editing problems, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. In this way, maybe it's more like the Rise of Skywalker of the Rocky movies.
Oh, that's a
constant.
Is
that more apt than Force Awakens? More apt comparison.
Yeah, because the difference for me is that I think The Force Awakens is more successful in hearkening back to the original than this one is.
Yes, this one just tries to in lame ways, whereas Force Awakens I don't think it harkens back. It just is. It is A New Hope,
but it's fun. That's the difference between Rise of Skywalker and Force Awakens. Not to get too much into Star Wars, but Force Awakens is a fun, enjoyable movie. You can claim it's not great, it's not good, whatever. It's fun. You enjoy watching it.
And I kind of describe the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies the same way.
Yes.
They're dumb, fun action movies. They're not Star Trek movies, but they're dumb action movies.
And by the way, that's what Rocky IV was. Rocky IV was a dumb, fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you're exactly right. It is the Rise of Skywalker movies where it's like, oh, we got to wrap up all these loose ends and we got too much stuff going on. And then you get to the end of it and it's like, that was less of a movie and more of a collection of scenes. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, one of the big things we've talked about with the Rocky movies before is the soundtrack.
That's right.
And Rocky V is no exception, taking quite a different approach, a lot less Bill Conti songs and rock music, dominated by hip-hop and New Jack Swing music. We've got MC Hammer, we've got Rob Bass, we've got Snap, and oddly enough, Elton John has a song on this album.
He does. That's right. It's what is it called? Go the Distance or something like that?
No, The Measure of a Man.
The Measure of a Man. Yes, and they play it while they're showing the different movies, different clips from all the Rocky movies.
Yes, right at the beginning. And by the way, written by Elton John and Alan Menken. If that name sounds familiar, he's the great composer behind the scores and songs of The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, winning several Academy Awards for that, as well as a number of other movies. One of the most famous composers of our modern era.
Yeah, I'll bet Stallone, maybe he got that idea from The Godfather. I think it was Godfather 3. They do something similar with the different showing clips from all the movies during the credits.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst opening sequence of a Rocky movie. Yeah, certainly a different sound, a very 1990s sound of this soundtrack.
I would even argue that the opening scene with him defeating Drago and immediately going into the locker room, I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
I thought that was genius because it's
Waste
like
no time.
whoa, yeah, like we're picking up right where the last movie left off, which doesn't happen in any other Rocky movie. It's
Yep.
just like right immediate. It's the immediacy is. I think that's really cool because it's like it's wasting no time, just throwing you right into the action. Here's Rocky. He won the fight, but he's got like a huge toll to pay because of it. He's shaking. He's hallucinating. He's got serious brain damage. The doctor tells him he'll never box again. That shouldn't be seen as a challenge to then try to box again, and risk your health and risk your life. It should just be, well, I've lost this part of my life, and now I have to cope with it.
Yep.
But that's not the movie we got. But
yeah, although I will say the one downside to doing the immediately after the Drago fight is his son is suddenly way older, like a couple days later, which was very funny to me. As soon as I realized that's what they were doing, and then they showed him greeting his son, and I'm like, is that the same actor? He looks way older in this movie. One of those silly things that only I noticed. Matt, this movie was released in 1990.
Sean,
yes.
Are you? I'm going to interrupt you just for a good reason here. Are you about to go to look up the movies of 1990, like we do in every episode?
Among other things, yes.
Have you done it yet? Have you looked at the list?
Yes, I have. Were you going to try and quiz me?
Sean, I wanted to flip the script a little bit. Maybe next time.
I wouldn't dare let you do that. Have you seen the list?
No.
Okay.
I was about to Google it, and now I'm in for it.
I will be the first to admit, and I will be honest to everyone out there. I couldn't do this. There's a reason why I make you do it.
Well, that's exactly why I was trying to flip the script.
But I haven't seen any movies. I don't know what you expect from me. I'm looking here at the
Sean,
list.
do you think I've seen movies?
Of the top 10 highest grossing films of 1990, I think I've seen 2 of the top 10. So before we get into that, Rocky V, as I mentioned, the least successful box office-wise Rocky film ever, $40 million at the domestic box office. Matt, do you know what movie it opened against in its opening weekend? Hugely successful film, went on to, I think, 12 weeks at number 1 or something. A massive, massive success.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark here because I know it either came out in 90 or 91. And it was a very successful movie. I'm going to say Goodfellas.
No, Goodfellas did come out in 1990, but no, that's not it. I'll give you a hint. We're talking mid-November, right before Thanksgiving. Big time for family and kids movies. This movie did spawn several sequels.
Home Alone.
Home Alone. Very good. Look at you.
I did know that came out in 1990, yeah.
Home Alone came out the same week as Rocky V. Rocky V, by the way, an anticipated film. People were very excited following Rocky IV. Came out the same weekend. Home Alone beat it that weekend. Home Alone going on to gross $285 million domestically. Just a massive, massive success, and going on to becoming the second highest grossing movie of 1990.
There is no justice in a world where Rocky V would beat Home Alone, so I'm very glad that's the world we live in. Is that the world where Home Alone grosses more than Rocky V?
Well, it's a tough thing.
That's the timeline I'll take.
Because if you look at the also released that same weekend in 1990, The Rescuers Down Under, which opened at number 5, not a particularly huge success. But all around that time, it's a lot of family and kids movies, and to me, Rocky isn't really either. A kids movie or a family movie. So I don't understand really the strategy of releasing it.
It isn't
in the November-December time frame.
It very much strikes me as a spring, early summer release.
Yeah,
100%. This was like silly. If we were doing the summer. This would be a summer movie league pick. Why would you want a boxing movie where people, you watch it and then people want to go out and run around and people want to get out and like do stuff like. You don't want to watch it and then be like, okay, I got to go home because it's too cold outside. Like, no. I don't know.
Matt, I'll give you a hint as we look at the highest grossing films of 1990. The 10th highest grossing movie came out in that December, starred a similar big action star like Sylvester Stallone, but this time in a family film.
Did you repeat that last bit?
It was a big Hollywood action star, this
Okay.
time in a family comedy film.
Was it Jingle All the Way?
No, but you do have the right actor.
Oh, so it was okay. Kindergarten Cop.
Kindergarten Cop, 10th highest grossing
Yeah.
movie of 1990, also a very large success.
It's not the tumor.
Is no tumor. I've never seen
Put
that.
the cookie down. Oh, great movie,
I
Sean.
gotta watch these.
Well
All right,
worth
so Home Alone was number 2. Kindergarten Cop was number 10. How many of the other top highest grossing movies of 1990 can you name? One of them went on
Probably
to
not
win the
many.
Best Picture that year,
Then it wasn't Goodfellas.
and it was not Goodfellas. There's a pretty good mix of drama. Actually, they're pretty much all dramas or action movies. 2 of them are sequels.
You got to give me more than just that. Sequels
Okay.
to
The Academy Award winner was directed by the actor who starred in the movie. He also won Best Director Academy Award that year. A drama turn for him. It's Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves. That was number 4.
would have never got that.
There's
Sean.
another. Schwarzenegger has 2 of the top 10 grossing movies this year. The number 5 movie was also a Schwarzenegger, but this one was a bit of an outer space action film.
Oh, 1990. This is Total Recall.
It is Total Recall, number
Yes,
5.
okay.
Very good.
I just watched that the other day, actually.
I mentioned 2 sequels. One is to a heart-pounding action franchise with a third star who's not Schwarzenegger or Stallone. The other sequel is to a science fiction comedy series.
Science fiction comedy.
Now, loosely comedy. I'm not really for laughs, but I wouldn't call it a drama either. And it's the third one in this franchise. Third and final.
There were only Back to the Future.
Yes, part 3, number 6.
Yeah.
And number 7 is the other action franchise. This one, the second. The sequel, and again, with another sort of action drama comedy star of the time. One of the biggest stars of the 90s.
Give me the first letter of their name.
Of the actor's name? First
Yes.
name B.
Bruce Willis.
Yes, in
1990, Bruce Willis must have been in
action franchise.
Bruce Willis movies. Oh, Die Hard.
Die Hard 2.
Has to be. Die Hard 2. Okay.
Die Hard 2, Die Hard.
Yeah.
One other clue I'll give you before because this is going to take forever. You did not get the number 1 yet. A drama movie, as they call it, a romantic fantasy thriller film that has a famous pottery scene.
Oh, Ghost.
Ghost, number 1 of 1990.
Yeah.
And Matt, this is a movie that I made you watch involving 4 colorful characters.
The
who know
Teenage
Kung Fu.
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
There you go. Was the highest grossing independent film of all time when it came out. Also in the top 10, Pretty Woman and Presumed Innocent.
For the record, fans out there, I argued that Sean and I streaming Ninja Turtles should have been premium content. Sean did not. He didn't. He was not willing to go for it. So you can thank him
For the record,
for us not hiding behind a Patreon paywall
if
for that
people
episode.
were willing to pay for it, I would gladly put up a paywall.
I thought that should have been premium content.
I literally had a fan.
It was
ask
very
me
good.
when we're
I
doing the
recommend
next
you to
one.
listen to.
So
Yes, it was very good. I you know what? I had a fan tell me that we should do more stuff like that.
was it the same fan?
Imagine.
That would be very sad.
Doubtful.
Yeah, so there you go. That's all the fun facts I have about the release of Rocky V, and it destroyed the franchise for 16 years.
Oh yeah, it did. Well, it was meant to be the final one, and to a degree, I'm glad that Rocky IV wasn't the last Rocky movie. I think there are competent notes in this movie. Like, you know, there are many good ideas trapped under the surface, tragically trapped under the surface of this just bad movie. But I'm glad that Rocky IV was not the send off, because it's not really a send offy kind of movie. I'm glad that we had sequels after that. So
I'm I'm glad we didn't end on a good movie in the original first five movies. Like if they had ended on Rocky 4, you would have been like it would have been so like decent of an ending that like we never would have had Rocky Balboa or Creed or any of this stuff. Like I think you need Rocky 5 to in 2006 Stallone to be like that was a bad way to end this. We got to bring it back. So I guess in that respect it was successful.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I'm also glad that he didn't kill Rocky because you'll see. I think there's a lot to be said for Rocky Balboa and for Creed. Both very good movies. So
You know, it would have been absolutely hog wild to be on the fifth film in a franchise and to kill your main character. Like that would never happen. You know, and it's kind of funny because I do watch like, you know, Black Panther or whatever the movie, you know, the big superhero movie, and I'm like, Black Panther's going to be fine. They're not going to kill him. He's not going to die in the Black Panther movie. I just think it
yeah,
would have been so would have been the right call. I don't know, but I do think it would have been interesting to like kill Rocky and then figure out what insane workaround they would have had to bring him back for another sequel.
he could be a Force ghost.
Well, you know there have been
Like that.
legitimate rumors of a Rocky prequel television series.
That is interesting. That's very interesting, actually.
You know, sort of Rocky working for the loan shark, kind of a bit down on his luck. Maybe dating Adrian at the time. I don't know. Before his big Apollo fight, could be interesting. Sort of in 1970s Philadelphia.
I was wondering if it would take place during the events of Rocky 1, like leading up to the Apollo fight, or if it would be like just before Rocky 1, where Rocky is still kind of like a nobody. I think I'd rather watch the former. I think I'd rather watch the one where it's in Rocky 1.
Kind of an
Because then you'd have
detailed.
Mickey would be involved. It would be, yeah, it'd be kind of cool. I would absolutely watch that. Yeah.
Matt, we're just about done here with Rocky 5, but we have to do as we've done on every one of these and rate this movie on our patent pending scale. How many rounds does Rocky 5 go? I believe we both had Rocky 4 going pretty far, if not all the way, to winning this fight. Rocky 5, Matt, how far does it go in this match?
For me, Sean, Rocky 5 starts out strong out of the gate. We'll say that it gets hit real hard. Financial problems start up. That's a real good right hook to the jaw. Makes real solid contact. You hear a nice cracking sound there. The fight goes on. Rocky gets a little bit further. Then you get I have to move back to Philly. That's a punch right to the gut. Big gut. You might maybe faintly hear a rib crack there. I have this weird hallucination of Mickey all of a sudden in the gym. I think that's where Rocky like kind of regains his balance, fights back. He lands a couple more punches, makes another couple rounds, but then the fight at the end in the dark. That's another punch or two. The eyes start swelling, and then things start going dark, and Rocky gets knocked out cold in the fifth round. Just the fifth round, Sean. It's the fifth movie, so he only makes it around 5.
Yeah, that's I 100%. That's exactly where I was going. I think Rocky 5 has a good start to the fight, a decent first 5 rounds. But then due to Rocky 5's overwhelming incompetence, he realizes his shoelaces are untied, trips on them, falls out of the ring, and breaks his neck on the concrete floor. And so it's technically not a knockout. It's just a tragic ending to an otherwise unmemorable fight.
Indeed.
Fantastic. This series is just going great, and I cannot believe we're about to fast forward 16 years. So you said you just rewatched Rocky Balboa. I have never seen it. So I'm very excited. And I know you're a fan.
I'll say it has problems. It has flaws like all the Rocky movies. I've made very copious notes. but it's very different for mostly good reasons. I don't want to give too much away on this episode. I don't want to color your
No,
decision
please. Yeah.
before I allow you to experience it for yourself. But that's all I'll say about it for now. And then Creed we have after that as well. So
This is great. We're going to keep
Yeah.
chugging along here. As I said at the beginning, upfordebate.tv is our website. You can go there, get all the past episodes. If you didn't hear us talk about the first 4 movies, you definitely want to check that out. And of course, you can subscribe to get the next couple movies in your podcast feed, wherever you get podcasts, Overcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere, the video version on YouTube as well. And of course, you can get a hold of us. Let us know your thoughts on the Rocky movies at UpForDebateTV on Twitter. You can tweet at us or email us upfordebatetv@gmail.com. But that's going to do it for this episode. So on behalf of Matt, I'm Sean. Thanks for joining us on this Up for Debate Presents. Rocky 5 is done. Rocky Balboa is next. But until then, stay frosty. We'll see you next time.
Stay frosty.
That was terrible.